session to order. And could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Carling,
Here.
Councilmember Kick,
Here.
Councilmember Monroe,
Here. Vice Mayor Bonanno,
here,
Mayor Warner.
Here. You can now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We're now on to item 3.1. So always good to do the proclamations. And this is a proclamation declaring October 2022 as Hindu American Awareness and Appreciation Month, and presented to Parag by Champion on behalf of the Hindu community of Livermore, and Councilmember Monroe will present the proclamation. No, I can. It's not my event.
Okay, that works. All right, well, it gives me great pleasure to present this proclamation, which declares this month of Hindu American Awareness and Appreciation Month. I'm going to read a bunch of whereases. Whereas the city of Livermore has been and continues to be home to people of different national origins, immigration or refugee status, cultures, histories, races, ethnicities, religious affiliations or none, gender identities, sexual orientations, ages, education, economic status, and physical, mental, or emotional abilities. If we've left anything out, we're sorry. Our strength is derived from our diversity and inclusiveness, from respecting one another, from welcoming immigrants and others, and from collaborating with one another across our differences. And whereas the City Council believes that a city can best stand against bigotry, intolerance, and hate through leading by example and living our shared community values of welcome, inclusion, and respect, and by developing common ground in venues that allow us to talk and work together in service to each other and our community. And whereas, I love whereases, there is an estimated 1 billion Hindus worldwide and approximately 3.4 Hindu Americans who live across the nation. Livermore is home to a significant Hindu American population and has been influenced by the cultural, ethnic, linguistic, and religious diversity of its Hindu community, especially through the Vedanta philosophy, Ayurvedic medicine, Indian art, dance, music, meditation, yoga, and literature. Hindu organizations and individuals engage in seva, a Sanskrit word for selfless service through charity, public service, and the provision of free medical and legal services. And I'm sorry, I need to insert here that seva, some form of service, is one thing that we share in common as organizations, as religions, and that it binds us all together in your very specific way, but reaches across cultures. And there we go. And whereas the Livermore Hindu Community and Cultural Center provides a venue where Hindus can share in their cultural celebrations with the community and promote ideals of tolerance, pluralism, and religious freedom, which are inherent to their beliefs and respect the diversity of all faiths. The Vedas, the 5,000-year-old texts of Hindu Americans, provide the basis for these core principles. Truth is one. The wise call it by many names. Ekam, Sat, Vipra, Ma. Bahudavadanti. I would have got that, maybe. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Livermore proclaims the month of October as Hindu American Awareness and Appreciation Month, in appreciation of the achievements and contributions made by members of the Hindu community, and calls upon all residents to come together to celebrate our diversity. First of all, this gives me great pleasure. I appreciate all of you, your family, and the whole community, me personally, but then also on behalf of the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. So on behalf of the Hindu community of Livermore, I would like to give thanks to the Mayor, Bob Warner, and the council members for recognizing October as a Hindu Awareness and Appreciation Month. The Hindu community is proud to serve as productive members of Livermore. However, in parts of the world where there is a rising presence of the Hinduphobia that deliberately misinterprets Hinduism, overall, there is a simple lack of education about our worldwide living faith of more than 1 billion people. Your recognition of October as a Hindu Awareness and Appreciation Month is an important milestone for the self-esteem of many Hindu citizens living in the city of Livermore. We gratefully appreciate your appreciation and this proclamation. And the last thing is on October 30th, City of Livermore Library is hosting an exhibition called Darshana, a glimpse into Hindu civilization. So I cordially invite all of you, please visit from noon to 5 at the Livermore City Library, where we will be showcasing 21 posters describing the Hindu civilization. So if you would like to know more about Hinduism, please visit and join us for the Darshana event. Thank you.
I was able to see the Darshana. And plug for the Darshana event, which I was able to see up in San Ramon. It is truly, truly a fascinating event. I encourage everyone to see it when it comes here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for being here. Really glad we could do the proclamation. The next item is 3.2 Human Services Commission Annual Update presented by Chairperson Mark Ross.
Public. My name is Mark Ross. I'm the chair of the Human Services Commission, and I'm here tonight to provide you with the commission annual update. I appreciate this opportunity. Next slide. Just as a refresher, here are some of the main duties and responsibilities of the Human Services Commission. We serve as a primary advisory body to the City Council on conditions in the community, particularly those residents who are of low and moderate income. We advise the City Council of social needs within the community that will affect the delivery of human services and unaddressed needs. And we advise City Council regarding expenditures of funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. This will include, but is not limited to, entitlements received within this Community Development Block Grant, the CDBG funds program, and the Home Investment Partnership Program, the HOME. Next slide, please. Each year, as part of the grant process, we identify housing and human services priorities based on feedback from the commission, service providers, community, staff. After we go through the process of identifying the priorities, we bring them to council for approval. These 4 items are the fiscal year 2022-2023 approved housing and human services grant priorities. They include public health, housing, homelessness, and safety net access. This chart shows the total funding recommendations by funding source. I would like to note that the general fund allocation of $20,000 was a one-time request for Goodness Village. Next slide, please. We do have some challenges and opportunities that are presenting themselves. The federal government reduced the entire CDBG allocation for the local government of 4.4% of their entire budget. Because CDBG funds is done on a formula allocation, there can be several other factors that can also affect the CDBG entitlement amount. HUD informed us that Livermore has experienced a decrease in 3 of the formula data variables between fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 22. The people in poverty decreased. We don't believe this to be true. However, it is possible that we have left because they can't afford to live here anymore, and the median income increased, which could look like a reduction in poverty in their overall formula. The second is overcrowded housing units has decreased, and our total population has decreased. If you remember on the previous chart with various funding sources, we received $383,000 in CDBG funding. Only 15% of that amount, or roughly $57,000, can be used for public services. The SOE, the Social Opportunity Endowment funding, has allowed the commission to fund additional public services beyond the CDBG funding. For fiscal year 2022-2023 grant cycle, we're only able to fund 2 organizations with CDBG funds. With the allocation of the SOE funds, we're able to provide additional 7 organizations for a total of 9 organizations. The loss of the SOE will result in a significant loss of funding for local service providers. The commission created an SOE ad hoc committee to explore options to replace this funding. The ad hoc committee will bring to you a proposal forward to the full commission for consideration, and then work with staff to further advance this proposal. The commission and staff will continue to engage our federal, state, and county partners for additional resources for public services. Continuing to engage the community will help us gauge effectiveness of our current programs and provide the commission and staff with additional opportunities to better serve the needs of the community. Next slide, please. Finally, I'd like to highlight some of our highlights for the previous year. Note, as part of our grants process, we ask new applicants or new projects to be presented at a commission meeting. This gives a new applicant a chance to ask questions about the process and allows the commission to better understand the new agency or program. Reviewing and scoring 23 applications is a monumental and time-consuming task, and I want to thank my colleagues on the commission for their hard work and dedication. The 17 projects funded through the grants process will result in over 10,000 Livermore residents being served. In a previous slide, you were shown the council approved housing and human services grants priorities. A questionnaire that was sent out to Livermore service providers provided their input. We will also provide an opportunity at future commission meetings for members of the public to comment on the priorities. This will help us determine if there needs to be any changes based on social service trends. Finally, we have a joint commission meeting that will take place on November 8th that will include Dublin and Pleasanton's Human Services Commissions. While this meeting hasn't happened yet, I want to point out, since we haven't had a joint meeting since 2017, this is a pretty big meeting for us. And finally, I'll take any questions should you have any. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the report. And thank you for all the work you and your fellow commissioners do. I'm glad to see that you're getting the, working with our neighboring cities on this. I know in the Mayor's Conference in Alameda has been working with this, all the fellow mayors, as well as the supervisors, to come up with a line on a framework for treating homelessness and other things. So there's no question in my mind that this has to be a regional approach here. And so I'm glad you're restarting those meetings. Anyone else from the council want to say anything? Oh, Brittany's gonna, okay. Let me check that. Councilmember Kick.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, and I'm really glad to hear that the meetings will be regional again. I guess I was just wondering why they stopped being regional after 2017, or if it, how can we make sure that doesn't happen again? And then I'm looking forward to hearing what your suggestions and solutions are for that missing SOE funding. That's a bummer, and I appreciate that we're trying to find a solution in our community. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Yes, prior to COVID, I'm not aware of why the meetings had stopped, but right now they are scheduled to proceed. So I believe that COVID was one of the reasons why we didn't have the joint meetings in previous.
Okay, Councilmember Monroe.
So thank you very much for the report. I really appreciate hearing the good work. I have a couple of reflections, and then I guess mostly it's reflections as to what's raised for me. So one thing is with the presentation today and the discussion of the work that religious bodies do, one of the things I want to note is that they cannot do it alone. The amount of money we're talking about here is something that we really need cities to do. So the work together as religious bodies, as nonprofits, and as cities, and as governmental entities is truly essential. I think that this really demonstrates that that is the case. So I think this is sort of a good opportunity to point out that this is what communities do. We all work together on this. The second is just the amount of money. When I'm looking at how much money we're talking about in total, you gave an amount that's effectively $750,000 across 17 projects and organizations. And I want to point out that in the scheme of things, that amount of money is both a huge amount of money and not very much at all. And it speaks, I talk a lot about, as we all know, where we give our money is where our values are. And so this is sort of my preaching probably to the choir here, as it were, that we are getting money from the federal government, from the state, from the county, and from the municipalities to total $750,000. Where else could we be spending more money? How else could we be bringing this forward? So I'm not asking you to answer that. This is, as I say, preaching to the choir. But I applaud you for the work. I applaud you for the dedication. And I urge all of us to think about what that money means and how we can work to pool our resources to do more. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to item 4.0, Citizens Forum. And the city clerk could please explain the process for participating in tonight's meeting, please.
Yes, Mayor. The City Council's agenda provides opportunities for the public to participate in the meeting by addressing the City Council in the following ways. For non-agendized items, the public has the opportunity during Citizens Forum to address the City Council on any item of interest that is within the City Council's subject matter jurisdiction. For agendized items, the public can address the City Council on each item of business it considers when the mayor opens public comment and should be focused on that particular item. Please note, a speaker is not required to answer any questions from the City Council, and the City Council is not required to answer questions from the public. However, the mayor has the discretion to ask staff to address a speaker's comments when a council member believes it is relevant to a particular business item. When participating in tonight's meeting, one comment may be given per person, per item. Members of the public can participate in person or remotely as noticed on the agenda. To provide comment in person, please fill out and turn in a speaker card found at the entrance of the council chamber. Speakers will be announced in the order received. We will hear from members of the public who are in person first, followed by those wishing to speak on Zoom. To provide comment by Zoom, please use the raise hand feature or *9 if calling in when the item begins. Please do not wait until the public comment period opens for each item to raise your hand. Instead, raise your hand at the beginning of each item. Once public comment opens, each participant's name will be announced and their 3 minutes will begin once at the lectern or upon being unmuted. The mayor will announce the conclusion of the public comment period after comments have been voiced into the record. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. It's 7:20 and we'll go until 7:50 if we need to, also, and then continue after the rest of the agenda. So City Clerk, could you please announce the first speaker?
The first speaker is Greg Scott, followed by Constance Knops and Rick Nordyke.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Livermore City Council, City of Livermore staff and audience. I am Greg Scott and I speak against the downtown Livermore Eden Housing Project, for it is a poor vision for the community and its people. I also speak on homelessness. First, Councilwoman Monroe. I take exception to your comments in the last city council meeting, matters of consideration, that those against the downtown Eden housing project are against housing. That was a fallacious statement of generalization, Councilwoman Monroe. Until recently, I had been homeless in this community for over 6.5 years. I'm opposed to the location of the downtown Eden housing project. I am certainly not opposed to all housing, especially social housing as proposed by California Assembly Bill 2053. The question is, what are Livermore's plans to build more affordable housing on the scale of the downtown Eden housing project? If there are plans for this, then why cannot the downtown Eden housing project be relocated? Or are there no plans to build low-income housing projects of equivalent scale? To understand the downtown Eden housing project is to question who gets how much in tax credits for their involvement. JP Morgan Chase and Company, the largest bank by assets in the United States, is a partner of the nonprofit Eden Housing. How much are JP Morgan Chase's tax liabilities being reduced for their involvement in the downtown Eden housing project? When millions of Americans were losing their homes to foreclosures in the great financial crisis of 2007 to 2010, American taxpayers bailed JP Morgan Chase out to the tune of $12 billion through the Toxic Assets Relief Program, TARP. In 2012, with shenanigans in the credit default swap markets in London, $6 billion was lost by a JP Morgan Chase trader referred to as the London whale. JP Morgan Chase was subsequently fined $925 million. Chief Executive Officer Jamie Dimon had his salary cut 50% from $23 million to $11.5 million per year. Last year, he made $84 million. What the downtown Eden housing project is Livermore's whale. Livermore, if you think the downtown Eden housing project is magnanimous, you all are both deceived and deluded. What does JP Morgan Chase care about low-income housing in relation to its greedy profiteering centered in the housing market? The problem with tax credits is, quote, that the federal subsidy per unit of new construction is higher than it needs to be because of the various intermediaries involved in its financing, organizers, syndicators, general partners, managers, investors, each of whom are compensated for their efforts. www.taxpolicycenter.org. This is the problem with a number of these tax credits. Hence, why do you have an executive director of Eden Housing nonprofit making $415,000 a year and the top 17 in the organization getting 40% of the payroll, which averages out to $160,000 a year apiece? What are those that are at the bottom of the salary scale in the Eden Housing organization doing to afford housing in the Bay Area? For the low income and the homeless, the downtown Eden Housing project is misplaced and an inadequate solution.
The next speaker is Constance Copps, followed by Rick Nordike, and then over Zoom, Alan.
Could you put the time clock up on the screen here? It's, for us. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Connie Copps, and I'm here for 3 reasons. I'm dealing with some unusual problems with some dentists in the Tri-Valley. I will not elaborate on it, but if anyone has had an unusual experience with a dentist in the Tri-Valley, please contact me at 925-784-5190. This is very important to me to get down to the bottom of what's has occurred. Second, I am here because there's 2 issues on our ballot, Prop 26 and Prop 27. I don't really have an opinion on them, but I know that on Prop 27, they're saying they wrote it for themselves. And I have a similar project that I've been really putting out everywhere with government, with grocery stores, that also means to help unfunded liabilities through games on bags. And I'm not doing this completely for myself, but yes, I put a lot of work into it. It was seen by Governor Schwarzenegger back in the day, and I think it would really help do the same things Prop 27 is trying to achieve. But I didn't even think about putting it on the ballot, so I'm going to have to work on that. Third thing, I noticed the pools at my homeowners association are empty. And I know that a president of our board association who has been not calling me back about the pools, I'm really concerned that he's MIA. Okay, so if you happen to hear from anybody in Springtown about our swimming pools or about the restaurant whose happy hour faces those empty swimming pools, that I hope to someday again be swimming in a bikini and not in front of a bunch of people drinking. So I wonder, the good restaurant, I'm sure we can figure this out. So those are my 3 issues. My other one is over 20 years ago, 28 years ago, I used to team teach with a girl named Carol who's running for city council. And I worked with her and she was the most fair, honest, and caring person I ever worked with. And if you can work as a team teacher in a 2-year-old classroom and walk away loving that person, I think she can handle her job as city council. I'm not sure who's running against her because they could be great too, but I really think she's a wonderful, should be an asset to our community. And I think she'd solve a lot of problems that we have constantly reoccurring in Livermore. Thank you so much. And I did it in 3 minutes. Woo-hoo. Thank you.
Next speaker is Rick Nordike, followed by Alan, followed by Vladimir.
I've been following city councils since the mid-60s, and I've never seen the level of pompous and arrogance and the attitude of the council that's here now. They say you're transparent, but I think your transparency make the Trump administration look like a plate glass window, especially in this Eden Canyon, Eden housing project. It'd be nice if once one of you would say, yes, that's a nice project. It'd be nice to have a nice big park there, put the housing someplace else. That'd be great, but we've examined all the avenues and it's just not doable. It's impossible. But not one of you has said that. It'd be nice to hear just one of you say that you at least tried and said it, get it on print. I was reading Jeff Gaskey's letter in the Independent last week, and he talked about a councilwoman, that council person that was telling lies. So I checked it out, looked at the video, and I watched the council member Monroe throw a little tantrum, putting words in people's mouths and calling us liars. People complain you don't listen, but maybe you're hearing, but you're not listening. There's a difference. Now, all of us, I for one, I know I really love to have low-cost housing somewhere in the area, if they're just not downtown. I think everybody, or almost, I have to say, almost everybody, I'd imagine, shares that same thought. And you're calling them liars, and we resent that. That's an insult, slap in our face. I've never seen these words in your column in the Independent. I'm kind of curious why you've never stated those in the Independent. Frankly, the misstatements and comments like these have no business being at a city council meeting. Thank you.
Next speaker over Zoom is Alan, followed by Vladimir, followed by Lisa Strange.
Mayor, City Council, and fellow residents, after a week of 110-degree weather, the group Friends of Livermore responded to the climate crisis by trying to block yet another solar farm. This special interest group shares something in common with many others in the Tri-Valley, such as Move Eden Housing and most recently Take Back Livermore. They all receive over 90% of their funding from Gene King, who is rich, and Joan Sepula, who is also rich and owns the Independent. These plutocrats hide their involvement as long as they can through a subsidiary, Stearns Consulting, but the proof is in the Form 460s filed with the FPPC. Now, the Independent frequently reports on these special interest groups, calling them grassroots. In a true grassroots organization, people pool their resources to make demands of the people, powers that be. Through the Independent, the powers that be are telling people what to demand. Journalistic integrity no longer seems to be Joan Sepula's priority. Neither is consistency. Her special interest groups claims to oppose solar to preserve open space. The same people have also argued, sometimes on the same day, that we really must build equestrian arenas on open space. So they value horseplay over green energy and you can find their desired amendments to Measure D on your ballot. Now, on Indigenous Peoples Day, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the specific requests of natives from South America who are pleading with Californians to reduce our consumption of oil. Its extraction is poisoning their rainforest, endangering species and the ecosystem itself. Solar farms would provide alternative energy at the order of magnitude required for this climate crisis. The group is called Amazon Watch, and it's wrong to value our open space above their jungle while maintaining the pretense that you're actually helping the environment. Now, we must think critically about everything we hear and read, especially when special interest groups say they support solar and affordable housing while spending hundreds of thousands of dollars opposing it. Among the names of the organizations paid for by Gene King and Joan Sepla, I find, quote, Take Back Livermore to be more truthful than most. The two plutocrats once owned our city council and genuinely want it back. If you're looking to vote for candidates unbought by Tri-Valley royalty, I suggest voting for Marchand for mayor and Evan Branning and Mel Chong for city council. Thank you.
Next speaker is Vladimir, followed by Lisa Strange, followed by Cody P. Vladimir, you've been unable to speak. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, thank you. First, I would like to voice my support for the few gentlemen that spoke in regards to affordable housing being built in Livermore downtown. I think it is a complete abomination what you're doing to downtown, and you should be ashamed of what you're willing to do for 30 pieces of silver. I hope it's more than 30. Now that I've set the tone, I am a resident of Bear Creek Drive off of Laughlin here in Livermore. I'd like to ask the council to provide some clarity on the status of the Garaventa Hills project, about which I'm sure you've heard of very much because you listen to the body you represent. At least I assume so. As far as I'm aware, in a recent court case, Save the Hill versus City of Livermore, Save the Hill group succeeded in showing that the city did not follow proper procedure when approving this housing development project. The court decided that the project's approval therefore cannot stand. Why you approved this project in spite of the people continues to be an issue until this day, because now a few months have passed and PG&E is for some reason digging up the street here at Bear Creek Drive, conducting work in preparation for this Garaventa Hill project. I could end my comment here and ask you to simply explain the riddle to me thus far, which is, why is the project still alive after the court's decision? And why is a perfectly good street being disturbed in preparation for a project which the residents disapprove of? But I'll go further and remind the council that previous attempts of developing this hill over more than a decade now have always produced an outcry of disapproval from the surrounding neighborhood, and nothing has changed. As representatives of the residents of Livermore, you are aware of this, right? You know that people have complained on this issue endlessly. So does the city aim to proceed with the approval of this project anyway? Again, after the court's decision and after people have voiced themselves to you so many times, are you so passionately apathetic? Or is there some other reason? In the meantime, I'm going to go door to door and urge people in this neighborhood to be inconsiderate of PG&E's work on our street. I'm going to cause a commotion to the best extent I can until we get some representation from you and we get some answers. Thank you.
Next speaker is Lisa Strange, followed by Cody P. Lisa, you've been unable to speak. Please unmute yourself.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Lisa Strange, and I get to serve as the Northern California Outreach Manager at the California Department of Insurance. And I just wanted to take a moment tonight to share with the constituents of Livermore the work that the department's been doing on your behalf. Since 2019, we've met with more than 25,000 people in about 40 counties to specifically hear concerns around both availability and affordability of homeowners insurance. In January of 2022, Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara and the state's emergency response and readiness agencies came together to create what we call the Safer from Wildfires Framework. So now all of these agencies have a consistent approach to reducing risk with a list of achievable and effective actions to help make existing homes and businesses safer from wildfires. This ground-up approach has 3 layers. First layer is to obviously protect your structure, your home. Second, protect the immediate surroundings, which would be any decks, sheds, etc. And then third, protect the community. I won't go into a whole lot of detail about these actions because I know your local fire agencies do a great job at keeping you informed. But we believe involving your entire community to prevent wildfires from catching and spreading to other homes and businesses in the neighborhood is the most important. This includes things like enhanced infrastructure and programs like FireWise Communities. You can see the list of entire actions on our website at insurance.ca.gov. So what will these regulations do? Well, they're going to do 3 things. The first thing is they will require insurance companies to incorporate this framework into their pricing. So insurance companies will have to submit new rate filings that recognize safety. Secondly, consumers will finally receive their property's wildfire risk score and the reasons for it. And then third, consumers will be able to appeal that risk determination when you've done the work to harden your home and create defensible space. Let's see. I just wanted to remind you that we are a consumer protection agency. And so if you have any insurance questions on any lines of insurance, auto, health, please give us a call at 800-927-4357. Or again, our website is insurance.ca.gov. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Our final speaker is Cody P. Cody, you've been enabled to speak. Please unmute yourself.
Hello. Thank you guys for taking my call. 2 things. First of all, I could only find this link from the YouTube channel because on the website for the city of Livermore, how to view the meeting remotely, the instructions take you to a page not found. So please make sure that's updated for next month because I was just able to find this because I went to the YouTube channel. The main reason why I wanted to speak was because I would like to see a ban, a full ban and total ban on these plasticized political signs that are all over our streets right now. I understand that this is something that's going to be brought up next meeting, but I just want to let the board know that I'm speaking on behalf of myself and a number of other people that I have spoken with, that we are all completely against these non-recyclable signs. They are garbage now and they are garbage after the election. There are hundreds of these, if not thousands of them throughout the cities. They're on every corner. There's dozens of them on every corner, and there's no reason for us to have them. Other cities like Tracy and Modesto do not have these things. They're banned there. And as I understand it, the state of California has actually banned these as well, except for the city of Livermore has an exception for these on public property. I'm not against these things on private property if that's what homeowners would like to have and the campaigners would like to have, but having them on public property, it's just creating garbage. They're in the streets, they're in the gutters. I'm finding them, I've seen them in the drain to bay, gutters here in the downspouts of those things. I've ran over one with my truck and I pulled over and took it out of the street. I've done several of these now. The metal frames are there. I guess some of the signs have been either stolen or removed, but there's just metal frames there. Those were going to need to be picked up by the city of Livermore after this election's over. I just think it's creating garbage all over our city, and I don't think anyone wants to see these things. People that live here and no one wants to see these things, in my opinion, except for the people that are running. I also don't feel like it's an effective way for people to even advertise for these election cycles, but I'm sure they'll feel differently than I do, but I would like to see the board, I urge the board at this next meeting to please consider a ban on these to bring us up to the state of California's standards on these things. And if you'd like to see something else that can be done, if you look at Modesto and Tracy, two other cities, they have large banners that people have printed up and they're put in designated areas. I believe the city of Livermore can rent space to people at a cost, and the city money can be kept within the city of Livermore instead of these signs. Thank you.
Mayor, that was the final speaker.
Okay, thank you. I'll close citizens forum. We're now on to the consent calendar. Would any council member like to pull any items for discussion? So I'd point out the consent calendar items are considered routine in nature and acted upon by the city council with a single action. Members of the audience wishing to provide public input must submit a speaker card or use the raised hand feature in Zoom during the public comment period to comment on any of the consent calendar items. Do we have anybody who wishes to address us on the consent calendar?
Mayor, no comments have been received.
Okay, I'll close public comment on the consent calendar, bring it back to the council. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll move.
Second. Okay, moved and seconded. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Carling,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
Aye.
Councilmember Monroe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bonanno,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye, passes unanimously. We're on to 6.1 public hearings. I'd like to mention that 6.1 has been continued to the October 24, 2022 City Council meeting. 6.2 is hearing to receive and consider protests related to the annual fire hazard abatement program and confirm the 2022 weed abatement assessments for collection on the county assessor tax roll. Could I have a staff presentation, please?
Yes, Honorable Mayor Warner and members of the City Council, this is your City Manager, Mariana Marasheva. Item 6.2 will be presented by our Fire Marshal, Ryan Rucker. Mr. Rucker?
Good afternoon, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. On March 14th, 2022, the council adopted resolution 2022-026, declaring existing conditions of growing weeds, accumulated refuse, rubbish, or dirt on private property streets, parkways, and sidewalks adjacent to each parcel of real property as a public nuisance and should be abated. On April 25th, 2022, the City Council ordered the abatement of hazardous vegetation on the parcels identified in Exhibit A of attached resolution and declared that the abatement costs, including administrative costs incurred by the city, are the responsibility of the property owner. The schedule has been provided to all property owners, which include abatement timelines, types of work needed based on parcel type, as well as administrative costs, which are charged when the city performs the abatement. The fire department concluded hazardous vegetation abatement on 2 parcels in August of 2022 at a total cost of $7,786.80. The public hearing tonight is to consider any and all protests, and if the council finds it appropriate, adopt a resolution overruling protests, confirm the 2022 weed abatement assessment, and direct staff to forward a certified copy of the assessment report to the county auditor. Staff's available for questions.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'll open the public hearing. Do we have anybody who wishes to address us on this?
Mayor, no comments have been received.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing.
Excuse me, Mayor, I believe we do have a comment. Can you please state your name?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the council members. Thanks for giving me the chance to speak tonight. My name is Max Shindy, and I am the new owner for the property at 3615 Caldera Drive, and also own the 2 olive parcels along Concannon Boulevard. One of the 2 parcels that Deputy Rucker mentioned was in the name of Jaime Osorio, the previous owner for the olive parcels. The sale was completed and deeds were registered with the Alameda County on the morning of March 25th, 2022. And the previous owners, Jaime Osorio and Etelvina Garcia, moved out on April 8th. I continue to receive mail addressed to the owners, or the previous owners, despite my request that they issue a change address. This includes personal and private correspondence from banks, medical providers, insurance companies, tax bills, etc., which we have been sorting and leaving in a box for them to pick up every 4 to 6 weeks. I do not open this mail as that would be illegal. I was not aware that the Livermore Pleasanton Fire Department had started sending weed abatement notices, which were all addressed to the previous owner, Jaime Osorio. Until I opened the last one dated September 22nd that said payment notice on the envelope and had special tape to seal the envelope that caught my attention. I reached out to Fire Inspector Colin Tuna last Monday, October 3rd, who was kind enough to set up a 30-minute call with Deputy Rucker on Thursday, October 6th, and share copies of prior notices with me. So I have the copies of those now. I discussed the situation with them and was advised to bring the matter to this meeting. Here's a timeline to recap of what happened. So March 17th, the first notice stating the abatement deadline, like Mr. Rucker stated, was addressed to Jaime Osorio. I did not receive the notice. March 25th, home and olive parcels purchased and deeds transferred to my name. April 8th, previous owners moved out as per the contract. I had 2 weeks for them to move out of the property. They had access to mail until then. May 14th, I hired a person to mow the parcels for $750, but the back area is inaccessible to a tractor and needed manual weed whacking. End of June, I received a verbal/text quote to clear the rest of the parcels with a weed whacker for about $1,800. Sometime in June, note dated, this letter was not dated. Notice was sent to Jaime Osorio appreciating that we had mowed the front, but the back needed attention. I did not receive a copy of that letter. Sometime in July, again, not dated letter. There was a reminder sent for the previous notice. I did not receive it. The fire department hired a contractor to clear the areas in the back before my contractor could get to it. September 22nd, that's when I noticed, I opened the last notice of abatement action performed, which I opened. In an ideal world, the previous owners would have stated or shared the notices with me, but unfortunately, this did not happen. Regardless, I did my best to clear the parcels in a timely manner, not knowing the notices were going out. This is all new to me, as it's my intention to take care of the property. I even hired a contractor to take care of all the irrigation, which had been neglected for the last several years on the olive parcels. I would like to request that the council please waive the fees and penalties, as I never received the request, nor were the notices sent to the proper owner of the property, despite it being closed 6 months ago. As for the work done on the parcel, the quote for mowing half of the parcels, it is actually 2 parcels, one half was done, the other half was not. The quote was half of the parcel was twice the amount of money that was quoted to mow the entire lot. I'd like to hear comments on my request here, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to address this?
That's the final speaker, Mayor.
That was it. So this is in the time I've been on the council, the first time we've had this. So I must say, I don't know what the process is. So maybe the city attorney could tell us what we can do tonight, what we can't.
So what you have before you this evening, first off, Jason Collier, city attorney, as Fire Marshal Rucker had covered in his presentation this evening, what's before you is one, to confirm the cost for the weed abatement and to levy a lien on the property to collect it through the property tax roll. So that's the action before you. The prior actions that Mr. Rucker had walked through were the initial declaration that the weeds were a public nuisance and getting your authorization in order to go out and abate those weeds, because it was a public safety issue to get those weeds removed to protect against the fire season. And Mr. Rucker took you through what he had today. You have before you the opportunity to confirm and levy those fees that you believe are appropriate in this situation. I'll turn over to Ryan to walk through what those fees are for this particular property.
There are two properties, right? Do they both belong to this gentleman, or are they two separate properties? Okay, so we're not talking about the one that he doesn't represent then, right? Okay, thank you.
And which property are we speaking to tonight, Mr. Rucker? Okay, so that's the one at 3615 Caldera Drive.
Could I'm really having trouble hearing anybody from those mics.
Certainly. So I did walk away from the mic. I was asking Mr. Rucker to confirm which property it was with the individuals who came this evening to object. And they've confirmed that it's of the two properties before you, it's the second listed at 3615 Caldera Drive, Livermore, with a cost of work at $31.50, admin fee of $21.42, and a total due of $52.92. Is that correct, Mr. Rucker?
That is correct.
Thank you. And if you can walk through what transpired as far as the abatement process.
Well, to answer the gentleman's question on the letters that weren't dated, those were the letters we provided him copies of. They were not the original.
I'm sorry to interrupt again. Could you pull the mic closer? Because the volume is not being raised.
Letters,
Thank you.
the letters that were referenced that did not have the date on them were the copies we provided him the other day. They were not the original letters that went to the house. We sent out 4 letters that were issued to the new property owner after he took possession of the property. The last letter was opened. Typically, when we get correspondence where a new property owner is taking ownership, they will contact us via email, or they will call us directly to advise us that they are the new property owner, and that we will normally correspond with them as to what needs to happen from that point on. When I spoke to the new property owner on last week, he did advise us that he opened the final letter, which was the invoice for the abatement that we performed. And he also advised us that of the 4 letters that went to him prior to that, the first letter that went out in March was under the previous owner. The last 3 letters that went out before we sent out the 4th letter, which was the bill, those letters did come to his caretaker, and those letters were put aside for the original owner. So that's not typically what happens, but that was the case this time. So typically, we normally correspond with the new owners, as I said. So that's pretty much the protocol.
Can I ask a question, and then we can go in order here? I'm also having trouble with the volume. I don't know why. But it's not necessarily you. We have speakers here, but somehow the volume on our speakers are low, I think. Is that right? For some reason, our speakers are not on or not up or something. But anyway, what I'm trying to understand, number one, was there a miscommunication? Were the letters that were asking to abate the weeds sent to the new owner?
Well, the letters always go to the mailbox of the property. If a new owner has.
Well, were they addressed to the new owner?
No, they were addressed to the previous owner.
Okay, and the next question. I think I heard, whose responsibility is it to know who the owner is?
It's the fire department is required per government code section 3967.1 to go with the most current data. The county parcel quest, which is the database that the county assessor uses to update sometimes they're behind. So if we look at the database and it still reflects the previous
Oh,
owner.
okay, so you're doing your best to notify it with the information you have, but the information you had was incorrect. Is that what is my understanding?
Yes, that's normally when we hear from the new owner.
Oh, okay. So if I understand it, and others can ask the question here, letters went to the address to the mailbox, but with the first owner's name on it, not addressed to the new owner.
Correct.
Okay, and the new owner, I mean, wouldn't be, okay. You wouldn't expect the new owner to open somebody else's mail.
In terms of letters from the fire department that have the partial number on it, that
You never know, right? I mean,
That's right.
so I'm just asking, is there an expectation that mail addressed to a different person would be opened by it's addressed to person A and you would expect person B to open it? Is that our expectation?
So
I
can
wouldn't
s-
speculate on that.
So I can say what the code provides. The code provides, as Mr. Rucker mentioned, that they're to utilize the county's current tax assessment roll. So that's what they're to look to. That's what the statute directs the notices.
So I
be sent.
understood that.
Okay.
But it had the wrong name. So the letter went to the address with the wrong name. And is our expectation that someone should open a letter not addressed to them, even though it's at that address?
I can't answer that question. What I can answer is the code says and directs the fire marshal to send the letter to the property owner based upon the most current tax
Okay.
assessment roll.
I
Now,
think
the
we're,
code does provide an opportunity. It's not this situation, but I can tell there is one situation where it does provide relief, and it's as follows. It states that if the property owner switches hands, posts the lien. So if today you were to approve the lien, is imposed upon a piece of property, and prior to that property tax coming due, its delinquency date in December, if there was a transition or transfer of property in that window, rather than being on the assessed tax roll, it goes on the unsecured roll. So that's the only relief we're able to find in the code.
okay, I'll let others, I think I understand. It was addressed to the wrong person and there's no, okay, but that's what happened. Okay, so, but at the right address. Does anybody else want to ask a question? No, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not on Zoom, so you're going to have to look for my physical hand. I guess I understand we have to, there's codes and there's legalities here, but I guess I'd like to ask the resident, is it his intent as the new owner of this property to abate the weeds going forward? I'd just like to know that you were going to be a responsible homeowner and abate the weeds on your property going forward.
Yes, I will be.
So I think that sounds like there's some disconnects here. There's lessons learned about how we deal with the rare case in the mayor's longtime experience. He's never heard this. Let's see if we can work this out to some reasonable end so that the homeowner who intends to going forward, maintain his property properly. Let's see if we can sort of not do something that maybe meets some letter of some code and legalities, but get through this in a reasonable way. That would be my suggestion. And probably people other than us are best prepared to be able to work through it. That would be my suggestion.
Mr. Mayor, if I also may ask staff for our recommendation in this particular case.
So Honorable Mayor and Council, I'm Joe Testa, your fire chief. And the reason that we bring this item before you in the manner that we do is so that you have the opportunity to hear protests like you did tonight and get the full information that you got from the property owner as well as from the fire department. Our recommendation would be based on that information where he did not receive the notice that he not receive the full bill, either a amended portion or that we waive it this year, and look forward to him taking care of the weed abatement in future years.
And council, as your city attorney, that is well within your purview today. And again, there are two categories of costs that are associated with this particular property. One of which was the full cost of actually the work done. And then there was an admin fee of an additional $2,142. So there's two categories of fees for you to consider this evening.
So, and there's the admin fee, but then there's the price charged by the person who did the abatement. And how does that compare with the other quote? So there, I mean, so there's a couple of pieces here, but let me get to the other council members. Councilmember Carling.
Yeah, I think what I heard is that we're willing to forego the cost of what on that particular property. And I guess I would agree with that. Both whatever the cost of the abatement was, as well as the admin fee, both. And as my colleague, Councilmember Bonanno, Vice Mayor Bonanno mentioned, lesson learned, and we'll move on. So I guess my suggestion would impose the fine on the other property, who is not represented here tonight, and forgive the cost associated with this gentleman here that's in attendance. That's my recommendation.
Okay, Councilmember Kick.
I just want to verify that I heard the numbers correctly. We're talking about under $100. You weren't saying like 31.50 as in 3,150. It's $31.50.
No, $3,150 for the cost of the work to abate the weeds, and an administrative fee of $2,142 for a total due between the two of $5,292.
Okay, that's what I thought at first in the staff report. Then you guys said 31.50, and I was like, well, maybe there was a typo. Okay, never mind. So I understand the situation. I just want to clarify what we do next. I just don't. I think this is a super easy solvable problem. I just don't know if we are the ones to solve it. We get our information from a software system that's run by the county. Is that correct?
In terms of updating the information, that is correct.
Okay, so I don't think we have the purview to do this. So I'm not going to suggest that we do this, but I would appreciate if the fire department, if you could communicate with the county to figure out how easy it would be to have it go to, for example, 4340 Colgate. That's my address. I don't know why I just said that out loud on the thing. But if we could have it go to the current owner and or resident. I don't know why it has to be current resident. I mean, they do that on ads all the time. So just to prevent this from happening in the future, if we could suggest to the county that there's an easy fix. I think it's a pretty obvious solvable thing as we move forward.
If I may speak to that, one of the things City Attorney Alcala and I were discussing was to put the owner or current owner on all correspondence going out in the future. That way, if the property changes hands and the county has not updated the records, then the new owner would feel free to open the mail because it would be to so-and-so or current owner. And that way the new owner or the previous owner would still feel free to open that mail.
Great, and we have control over that. So that is something that we can do. Is that clear? Great, fantastic. Looks like we have a solution to prevent this from happening again. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Monroe.
Well, once again, I go last and I just get to say ditto. I would like to note though that this is, and by the way, I think that's brilliant. What an easy solution. Or current resident, great, or owner rather. What I notice is that what we're seeing in this example is what happens when government's understaffed. We have UPS with mail that is sitting. We have a county that hasn't updated it, that's behind on updating. I'm not going to speak to our staff because we're obviously awesome, but we should be paying attention to government works best when it's able to actually function, and that actually does require us all working together on that. So, but yeah, I think we have a solution. Do we need to vote on? Yeah, I guess we have to vote on it. Do you want me to make a motion? Actually, I have no idea how I'd make the motion. I would want staff to help me with that.
That's where I was going to try and weigh in here and give you a hand through this. I see some consensus being developed here. Let me put this on the table and see if we have a consensus, which is to forego the weed abatement assessment this year on the property at 3615 Caldera Drive, Livermore. That's both the cost of the work and the admin fee.
Well, just one thing is, he did get a quote. So for what he thought the work should cost, if that's been spent, that quote is what he ought to pay.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
is that the interest?
Pardon?
So
Right.
essentially, that's what I'm trying to have with the council right now is to see if you have come to a meeting of the minds. It sounds like you want to pursue a little further, Mr. Mayor, what the actual cost was. Now, you're under no obligation to speak, but if you're willing to put on the table, one, what your cost of work does, and two, did the contractor actually follow through on that? That's the question from the mayor.
So let me make sure, again, I don't know why it's hard to hear. I don't know, I didn't follow all of the costs of who spent what. But I think the city paid for some work to be done, is that correct?
The current owner indicated earlier that our cost was double what his bid was.
Right. So, but the work got done, and so why not charge what he was willing to pay on his other bid?
If I may, so I did mow the front part of the parcels. There are two parcels. I mowed the front part of the parcels, and that was appreciated in one of the letters that came from the fire department. The backside is not accessible, the tractor, and that needed like manual weed whacking. And that's the part for both parcels I got quote for, and that was $1,800. What was done, the work that was done was one parcel, and that was quoted at $3,200. So the other parcel, I'd have to do the work anyways.
So I don't know why it's so hard. The thing is, you said earlier you want to get the work done.
Yes.
Whether or not you can use a tractor or not is not the issue.
Yes.
Okay. The point is, what I'm trying to get at is that there's a certain square footage that was supposed to be abated. You abated part of it.
Yes.
And you got a quote for the other part that was abated by the city. Is that correct?
Half of it was abated by the city.
Right. But all I'm trying to say is you got a quote for what it would have cost you if you had done it and the city
Yes.
hadn't done it. So that's what it ought to be,
I agree.
right? I mean, that strikes me as that's what it is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Do we know what that amount is?
$1,800.
Oh, that's true.
Versus 3,100.
One moment, please.
Mr. Mayor, so sorry, we're trying to determine what the appropriate course of action should be. We're discussing a lien, and it seems to us that placing a lien on this property is not the way to go. However, we do need to charge the property owner for the appropriate amount of expenses. But those are two separate actions. The action before you is to place a lien on the property, which staff recommends not to do, subject to the property owner paying the city or paying the fire department in accordance with the private quote that was received. So
Good.
it's a
Did
two-step
you just make the
approach.
motion for us?
I think I did. It was a little too long, but I think I did.
Okay. And then we place the lien for the other property that's not in contention. Okay, does that all make sense?
It does. Let me see if I can restate the motion. That would be before the council this evening. Motion to approve staff's recommendation for the resolution to confirm the costs and lien, but only with regard to the one property located at the other one, not the 3615 Caldera, but the other property. So just that one property. Two, that the resolution also give direction to staff to coordinate with the property owner for the Caldera property to come to a deal, an understanding to pay those $1,800 for that work. And that'll satisfy the council's goal and your reduction of the fee on this particular action. If that's your goal, what I would do is come back with a confirming resolution at your next council meeting and your consent calendar to actually implement that. It'll reflect this. If for some reason that negotiation doesn't work itself out, that item could eventually appear as another item on a future agenda for a future lien. But I think, well, we've got a meeting of the minds that'll get worked out. So if that's the direction of the council, I'll go away, work with Ryan. We'll come back at your next meeting with a confirming resolution for that aspect. Hold on 1 minute, sorry. All right, so we've already missed the tax roll opportunity for this year. Let us come back with one resolution that actually captures all this as opposed to me trying to create sausage before you this evening. If that's the will of the council, I'll do that with your direction this evening.
Well, and see, no, can we separate this to the one parcel that's not in contention?
You can. So again, if you want to follow through with the first part of the motion that I have, which is to proceed, move staff's recommendation with regard to the first property and Exhibit A and remove the second, we can do that.
That's what we want to do.
Okay.
Okay, and then, so the other part, and I don't know where we put it in this, is to make sure the addressing on the envelopes is different. And I think it needs to have maybe in red on it that this is going to be costly if you don't open it. You know, something about this is a serious deal, open it or you're going to pay. I mean, something like that.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think the message has been received, and Fire Marshal Rucker and I have already talked this afternoon. We're planning to get together to review the processes conjunctively, both with our office and the fire department.
Okay, so we don't have to put that in the motion or anything?
I think I've heard that, and I believe Mariana's heard that, so she's gonna make sure that
Okay,
Joe's heard
I'm
that.
just checking. So, because we had that conversation. So I'll make the motion that we put the lien on the first property and figure the second one out per our discussion.
Second.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Carling.
Aye.
Councilmember Kick.
Aye.
Councilmember Monroe.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye, passes unanimously. Thank you for, I want to just thank everybody for working this through because it's like not something that happens all the time and it takes, just calmly work it through. So thank you. Okay. One of the more interesting weed abatements I've dealt with in a decade, so.
Excuse me, Mayor. Can I just clarify the vote was yourself as the motion and Councilmember Monroe as the second? Thank you.
Okay. Now we're on to 7.1. That motion passed unanimously. Okay, on 6.2. So we're at 7.1, a discussion and direction regarding the 2022 community survey, including selection of customized questions. Staff presentation, please.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, this is your City Manager, Mariana Marasheva again, and item 7.1 will be presented by our Management Analyst, Stephanie Egidio. Ms. Egidio?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. I am Stephanie Egidio, Management Analyst in the City Manager's Office. The city is once again partnering with the National Research Center at Polco to identify residents' values and perceptions of quality of life and city services through the National Community Survey. It is an important benchmarking tool, and the results aid in council decision-making, inform city operations, open dialogue, and increase community participation. The city has engaged in this survey every 2 years since 2004, which captures residents' views considering 10 central facets of a community listed here. This year, the statistically valid survey will be mailed to 3,200 Livermore households with both English and Spanish language options available. Livermore's survey results will be compared with benchmarks compiled from surveys conducted across over 500 communities nationwide. In addition to the national benchmarks, Livermore will receive comparisons against a custom group composed of West Coast communities that have conducted the survey in the last 5 years. The results are shared with the public via a City Council meeting presentation and through postings on the city's website and on social media. Both a PDF version of the results and an interactive digital format will be available. Additionally, the survey will also be opened up online to all interested residents for 2 weeks in mid-December via a unique web link. And finally, the city may include a limited number of closed-end policy questions as part of the questionnaire. Past examples included topics such as workforce housing, homelessness, and climate change. Your agenda packet includes a list of prior custom questions from Livermore surveys. Staff is seeking direction from the City Council regarding the inclusion of specific closed-end policy questions in the upcoming National Community Survey. Should Council choose to include custom questions, staff recommends Council consider the 3 categories of the general plan update, climate action, and community engagement. Upon City Council direction, staff will work with Polko on final statistically valid survey language. This includes staff's presentation, and we're available for questions.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wishes to address us on this?
This on? Okay. Was wondering if what that unique system is for like other citizens to maybe just fill this out. Maybe the city could have a copy of this questionnaire and people could email their answers, to just a regular other database that's not unique, that's more targeted. And if people wanted to leave their address too, that they could be, if they felt like they didn't care if they were identified. I don't know a lot about numbers with this stuff, but I think sometimes you might find community pockets that might be a little bit more satisfied with one subject than another. And if you were to put this questionnaire on your own website that people could fill out and mail in, or keep the data actually online, so it could get you could get a better understanding of where your people are satisfied and where they're not so satisfied. Because if there's a cluster of what do you call them, the different sections of the council, whatever, the different lines of lines of the city in the map, you might find that you could solve problems that don't get solved because they fall into this general category rather than a specific. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else?
We do have one additional speaker over Zoom. It's Cody P. Cody, you've been unable to speak. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, this is in regards to the Eden housing, right? This you're talking about right now?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. What is this? This is the general plan. Was that not part of the general plan?
This is, so I'll just try and do it. The topic is the citizen survey that goes out every couple of years. It's a national survey we participate in. And we have the opportunity to pick 3 categories for an additional question. That's what we're talking about. So do you want to address us on that?
No, I'm sorry. I was confused. I thought this was part of, when you said the general plan, I thought this was part of, I thought you guys were still discussing the downtown project. No problem. That's fine. My mistake. Thank you.
Okay. That's okay. So anyone else?
There are no additional speakers, Mayor.
Okay, I'll close the public comment on this item, bring it back to the council. Do we have a non-Zoom hand?
Yeah, thank you. Not sure why I wasn't able to log in, but I'm sure it's user error. I think these topic areas, categories I have to think a little bit about what would be missing. And I think if we're going to do 3, these are current and very relevant. I think how the actual questions are crafted, of course, is going to determine how useful the data we get back. Too specific may not be as useful. And too broad is also doesn't usually result in that. But I assume the professionals who will craft the questions will ensure that they're written in a way that we get good data back. So I'm happy with it. I'm certainly, keenly interested in climate action. And I think how our community feels about it, what we're doing, what they can do, and sort of the problem overall, I think is how important Livermore's climate action is. I think it's really important to me. I think general plan, very timely, and community engagement is interesting because doing a survey is a form of community engagement. So how well we do on this survey, I guess, will be part of sort of a circular reference back to the category. So anyway, just to sum it up, I think these are fine. I thought about what would be missing. What would I like to see that's not on the list? And I really couldn't think of anything that I thought would be more important this go around. We get to do this every 2 years, so it's something that needs to be quite timely. And I think these 3 topics are. So that's what I have to say about it. Thank you.
Sorry, could you put the list back up on our screen in front of us? Councilmember Monroe.
I agree that these are good topics. General plan, absolutely. Climate action, always. Community engagement, as I was thinking about this, clearly this is something that's current and that we have been for a while. And I think all cities have been getting a lot of questions on that. If there is a way to craft this, so it's not just, do you feel like the city reaches out to you, or it's how engaged are you, but it's what do you actually know? And I'm not sure whether that's possible given the limitations, but if there's any way to include that, what do you know in it, as in a, so it's like a back and forth, that would be great. But I do recognize the limitations, so.
I don't remember, are there verbatims on this? Are there verbatim section on this survey?
Mr. Mayor, are you asking if there are open-ended questions? I don't think these are open-ended, Ms. Egidio, is that correct?
Correct. These will be closed-end questions.
No, so it'll be hard to list every possible piece of knowledge and ask whether they know it or not. So
Can I respond to that quickly? So I can imagine this being a set of closed-ended questions ranked in order. So anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, this is I don't think these questions are multi-part questions, right? With 10, I mean, that is a question. It's a one question, isn't it?
Honorable Mayor, this is Christine Martin, your Assistant City Manager. The questions can be multiple part in the manner that Councilmember Monroe suggested. As long as it doesn't get too lengthy, we are limited by space.
So you could say in that how satisfied are you with your knowledge on X number of topics, a limited set? So we could do that. Okay. Okay, just want to know. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think certainly the general plan and climate action are very timely. And I'm happy with community engagement. So, yeah.
So we don't, who decides on what the final questions are? What's the process?
Staff will work with Polko, the survey institution, to go ahead and craft those questions.
So you got enough information from us?
We do.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we can close out this item then. 7.2, information requested regarding reproductive rights. Staff presentation, please.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, this is your City Manager, Mariana Marasheva. And since Ms. Egidio did such a good job on the previous item, are we inviting her to present? No, I am told that we have a change of plans. Our Assistant City Manager, Christine Martin, is going to present item 7.2. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. I am Christine Martin, your Assistant City Manager, and I'm here this evening to present a report back on a matters initiated on reproductive rights. Let's see, next slide. Okay. In June, the council did request information regarding ways that the city could facilitate efforts to protect the rights of women to care for their own reproductive health. And since that time, back in September, the state did launch, oops, I'm sorry. Did I do it incorrectly? Oh, thank you, Marie. Back to what I was saying, in September, the state did launch a new website with resources for anyone looking for information on accessing abortion services in the state of California. This website, what you see is just a snapshot of there on the slide of the homepage, is designed to share information for both California residents and for people that are traveling here. And it does provide and pool a bunch of information from across the state into this one location. And that website is listed there on the screen. So staff did just want to report that information back for council's consideration and discussion this evening. Should you choose to discuss that information, we're here to hear your direction. And that concludes our presentation this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wishes to address us?
Mayor, no comments have been received.
Was that it? That was no? Okay, so I'll close the public comment on 7.2, and it's a information item only. Any further comment from the council?
I just want to thank you for the work on this and to appreciate the fact that the state's way ahead of us on this. And so, we actually can appreciate their efforts on this on behalf of all of us. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're on to 8. Oh, okay. Councilmember Kick.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate that, maybe there's not any legislative action that we can take, but I want to bring to the attention of staff if we can be sure that we're checking in with what I would call our soft infrastructure, our community partners, and purposely bringing this up with them. If they are seeing an extra need, I think that would be good information for us to have in case we need to have this discussion again. It seems like we haven't been aware of any significant extra need as we're still protected in California, but to just keep that in our mind.
Okay, thank you. So we're on to item 8.0, council committee reports and matters initiated by the city manager, attorney, staff, council members. Councilmember Kick, you're up again.
I am. I just wanted to have, I guess my matters would be just that, yes, we are talking about signs already, so it doesn't really need to be a matters, but we're going to talk about it on the 24th. Is that correct, Mariana?
Yes, Councilmember Kick. At the mayor's direction, staff has placed an item on the October 24th agenda to reconsider current rules and regulations with regards to temporary signs. So that item will be before you at the next meeting on October 24th.
Okay, great. And I don't have anything significant to report. We've spent a lot of time being sick over here, which is why I'm visiting you virtually today. But I did want to give a shout out to our library, who's been putting on a number of great events. And even though I haven't been able to attend all of them, I'm hearing about all of them from lots of families with children, even if my kids and I aren't going. I guess also I did attend the airport open house, which was great and well attended. So shout out to staff for putting on that great event. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Carling.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things over the last couple of weeks. One was the Tri-Valley Cities Council meeting held out. We hosted it. We, the city of Livermore, hosted it at Poppy Ridge. And I was particularly enthusiastic or enthused about hearing from Kim Curtis and Goodness Village and Darren Lowndes regarding Vineyard 2.0. Both of them are important contributions to our community in dealing with our unsheltered population. And I think if you've had the opportunity to drive out north of First Street on Livermore, you'll see that Vineyard 2.0 is really coming along quite well and making a lot of progress. Several of us also, Vice Mayor Bonanno and Councilmember Monroe and I, went to the swearing in for the LPD, which we hadn't done, Livermore Police Department, which I don't think we've had a public event in a couple of years. And this was out at Wente out in the lawn area there, and I think there must have been a couple of hundred people there. Lots of families there, and I mean it was so meaningful to watch those folks get sworn in, men and women get sworn in, and what they're contributing to this community to keep us all safe and sound, and backed by very meaningful partners, family members, and so on and so forth. I think it was particularly meaningful to me to see how many grandfathers, fathers, uncles that have been past police officers, they're pinning the badge on a grandson, a brother, a nephew, a niece. It's just very, very heartwarming to know those people are there to protect us. Council member or Vice Mayor Bonanno and I are continuing to participate in the climate meetings, and I think the staff has made great progress, and I admire the dedication that quite a few people have been putting in. Paul Spence and his group on this, and I think and I hope that the citizens, residents of Livermore are going to be very proud of what our staff has put together in terms of our climate action plan. I also want to point out that SB 1383 is something where we're talking about meeting compost requirements that each of the communities in the state are required to meet. And just want to call out attention that Fertile Groundworks located at Asbury Methodist Church is going to open up a compost hub, or maybe they've already opened up, but I don't know they're completely ready for citizens, residents to go pick up their own compost. But I think at some point in the near future, a very near future, that you'll be able to bring your 5-gallon bucket over there or a bag or something and be able to pick up your own compost and take it back and use it in your garden. So again, I think this is a great service for the community that another one of our nonprofits and faith communities are helping to our community, our city of Livermore, meeting the requirements of SB 1383, which are rather onerous in terms of composting for our community. So again, I applaud them in creating this compost hub, and I hope the residents are able to take advantage of that. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Monroe.
So I appreciate Councilmember Carling's discussion of the swearing in and Tri-Valley Cities. I too attended those events. Very much enjoyed both of them for similar reasons. I wanted to point one thing out that really struck me about the Livermore Police Department swearing in. There were 47 people who were sworn in, and what struck me about Chief Young's introduction was the way that he built community within the department and between the department and the community. It is something that we are, I don't know how common it is. I really hope it's not something that's uncommon, but it is something that we should really appreciate. The care that Chief Young, with which Chief Young spoke of taking care of not only physical, but mental health in a very difficult job, I thought was really striking. I too was moved by the generation to generation, but I'm also would speak to the fact that at a time where police officers feel not appreciated, I believe that is not the case for the police officers in Livermore. I really hope so. And part of that has to do with the second part of what Chief Young said, which was to talk about that community caring and that service sensibility that our police department brings to the community. So that was a real pleasure. I also appreciate, yeah, I mentioned the Tri-Valley dinner as well. I also stopped by the airport open house. That was a whole lot of fun. Then I wanted to speak a little bit about just the past couple of weeks, because this past couple of weeks was just how much Livermore has to offer. And what we saw tonight with the presentation, for recognition of the Hindu community is just a piece of it. On Saturday, October 1st, I went to a Taste of Africa, which was celebrating its 10th year with music, dance, food, and a lot more. And then on Sunday, I went to the Filipino Barrio Festival with more and different music, dance, and food. And then I weighed myself and was sorry. And this past weekend, I stopped by Art Walk with the many artists, and there were artisans showing off their wares. And then, I've been also in the middle of my own Jewish holidays. In fact, on the way over here, I stopped in at Sukkah to shake the lulav, look it up. It's a thing. This richness is just truly remarkable. And so with that, I wanted to talk a little bit about this particular Monday in October, because this is an interesting Monday. It is, as somebody mentioned, I think it was Alan Marling mentioned, Indigenous Peoples Day, but it's also known as Columbus Day. And I strongly believe we need to observe Indigenous Peoples Day because the genocide done to our Indigenous people in building all the Americas, not just the United States, it really should not be forgotten. And Columbus was definitely not a good actor, really doesn't deserve a footstool, let alone a day. But the story of Columbus Day is actually more interesting than the man himself. And that is actually a story that is about how we treat immigrants. And Italian Americans have long since become white. That's what happens to immigrants over the period of time. But there was a period of time more than 100 years ago where that wasn't the case. In 1892, so it's 400 years after Columbus sailed the ocean blue, a New Orleans mob murdered 11 Italian immigrants. And so on that year, President Benjamin Harris issued a one-time proclamation for a Columbus Day celebration in order to teach American ideals. This is not the way we think about Columbus Day today, but this is its origin. It's an immigrant story. It's a story of diversity. Which brings us back to Livermore today and our continuing efforts in diversity and enjoying and respecting our differences, as we heard at the beginning of the meeting. So that over these last 2 weeks, all of this has been really brought home. And I just feel like bringing the day on which we are holding our council meeting is worth noting all of those things. I have a matter I wanted to mention to council. It may be a matter is initiated, it may not, depending. Over the past, I sit on the LCAC, I'm the council rep on the LCAC, Livermore Cultural Arts Council. Over the past year, I have been part of a subcommittee to redefine the mission, the vision, and the bylaws. Those are going to be going to the full board to change. It's a fairly radical change, and I can speak more about the need for that. There's general agreement that the mission needs to change, the vision needs to change, and that currently the organization is not in a functional place. Question is whether or not this will go for, the decision the subcommittee has made will be adopted. I will be recommending that is the case. I mean, I worked on the subcommittee. You would expect that to be the case, but I wanted to make sure that the council had a chance to weigh in if they wanted to, or give head nods or whatever going forward before I actually, as I say, it's a fairly radical change. So if you want it placed on the agenda for the next meeting, fine. If you want to just say, go forth and do as you will, that's also fine. Jason, did I do that right?
Councilor Monroe, yes, the rules of procedure do recommend that your appointments to your regional bodies, if there's a decision of importance, to bring it back to the council to see whether there's an interest in placing it on a future agenda, so you as a council can provide collective direction.
This isn't an appointment. It's a question of whether our appointed member can vote the way she indicated. There's no need to bring this back. Unless, right?
That's the question before you. If you wanted to bring it back, you can, but you don't have to.
Yeah, but it's it's not required unless we get 3 head nods here that want to bring it back. Do we have 3? I don't think so. Okay, we're done.
Okay, good. I'm not done yet. I just wanted to make sure. I'm sorry. I'm I know you want to get out of here. Nevertheless, I had a question, which is that, Vladimir, can we address with him, or does not have to be at this meeting? Just, I was a little confused about what he was asking, but can the staff take that up offline perhaps?
Someone who spoke during citizens forum.
Right. yeah.
Vladimir was his first name.
About Bear Creek Road.
Yeah.
Councilmember Monroe, are you asking for a response from staff to you right now? Is that what you're asking for? We can provide a 1-sentence response of what we know.
A 1-sentence response to staff
about-
would be great. Yes, thank
Sure.
you. From staff, thank you.
Yeah.
I could give the legal perspective, and then I can turn it over to Paul. From the legal perspective, the case has been remanded from the appellate court back to the trial court. And the trial court has issued its judgment in that decision, and the applicant is re-evaluating its next options. And I believe may have had conversations with community development.
Yes, so the applicant is interested in pursuing an opportunity to make corrections based on the direction from the court and bring the project back through the process.
Right. And finally, I wanted to address the comments by Mr. Nordyke because I take them very seriously. He said that I had called a group of people liars. Now, I work very hard to not label people anything. I work to label behavior. If I disagree with a behavior, I will say the way I disagree with that. So if I spoke to the behavior and I believe that the behavior was incorrect, then I would stand by what I said. But I do not know, because I have not listened to the recording, what precisely I said. Therefore, but I also do not want to let this sit. I very much do not support myself calling anyone a liar. So assuming that that is a correct statement, then I deeply apologize to those people I called liars. If that is not the case, then I stand by a statement of calling out behavior. So I hope that's clear. I really don't like if, but since I don't actually know what I did, that's the way it's going to have to stand. Thank you very much.
Vice Mayor Monroe.
Yeah. All right, let's see. I think Councilmember Carling and Monroe stated how great the LPD swearing in event was. I'll just add one thing. I got to see a young man who my son grew up with, who I know from probably kindergarten, first grade, get pinned. He's one of the newest police officers. That was very cool. The subcommittee work for climate action, I just agree. I think staff is doing great work. We're really happy to be part of it. It's been a really interesting process, and one that I think is been just a great part of my time here on the council. So I thank staff for that, and Councilmember Carling as well for being such a good partner on the subcommittee. And I'll just mention that, and since nobody else did, it's Livermore, it's Pride Month. October is Pride Month. There's a whole a listing of events almost every day. 22 events, I think, are planned for October. Every weekend there's something going on, hikes, bike rides, music, all kinds of events all over town. So I encourage everybody to Google Livermore Pride and you can find all the calendar of events. And I think a good time is being had by all. So I will leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to add anything to what I put in the report. So this meeting is adjourned to a regular city council meeting on Monday, October 24, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Civic Center Meeting Hall, City Council Chambers. Thank you. And also virtually by Zoom.